Welcome to Beginners Academy. We have a audience on Zoom. We do record these for YouTube. We have a topic every other week. This week it's ham radio via the ISS. Um, I'm Greg Lane, N4KGL, and I'll be presenting tonight. Uh, this came to my attention. It was on Amateur Radio Daily, and that is that the ISS is currently scheduled for retirement in 2030. But Elon Musk has called for an earlier retirement as soon as 2027. And we won't go into all that, but that leaves hams with only 24 months to continue taking advantage of the FM repeater and the APRS digipeater on board the space station. And uh, you may or may not know that most astronauts have their amateur radio license, and they do various amateur radio activities while they're on the ISS. So we don't know if it'll be 2027, 2030, but in any case, it's time to learn more about it. And so that's what our topic's on tonight. If you haven't already used the capabilities they have. I got a lot of information from ARISS.org. That's Organization Amateur Radio on the International Space Station. And basically, the ISS is a satellite. So, using the capabilities of the ISS is similar to doing amateur radio satellites and in general. And there is a organization, AMSAT, whose mission is to promote amateur satellites. All right, there are some radios on the ISS, and they happen to be Kenwood TMD 710GAs. And that is a top of the line radio, particular for APRS, automatic position reporting system. And so that comes in handy. And they may modify the radios a little bit, but basically there are two of them there, and we'll tell you where they are. The first one is in the Columbus module, and it's configured to be a cross-band repeater. So most of our repeaters, the input and output are on the same band, but it's better in a satellite situation to have the uplink on one band and the downlink on another. And so the downlink is on UHF 437.800, and the uplink is on VHF. Now, this page is from the ARISS website, and they keep the status, keep it updated for the status. And the snapshot as of March 5th was that today that this repeater will be off. And it's off for various operations they do, including, I call it a spacewalk, and also docking, as you can see. So So it won't be up 100% of the time. And we'll be talking more about this crossband repeater tonight. In the service module, there's another D710, and it's configured for packet radio. And they have a digipeater. It's basically a digipeater. We'll talk more about that. And one of the beauties of a digipeater is all the communications is on one frequency, and that's one VHF 145 825. So now it fits into a scheme called APRS or APRS, which is used all around the world on a different frequency, 140, I think it's 144.390, but the ISS is on a different frequency. So take note of that. And also, you know, the digipeater will be subject to various times when they turn it off. Uh, Another role of this radio is to do SSTV, which is slow scan TV, um, and we'll cover that. Now, the idea is similar to a conventional repeater, and the advantage, obviously, is if you have a repeater in space, um, you can use it to communicate people inside a large footprint, much larger than any terrestrial repeater. Um, but because the ISS is moving so fast, there is the Doppler phenomenon. And the Doppler is more predominant. It exists on VHF and UHF, but it has a bigger effect on UHF, the higher frequencies. And so this downlink, if you're on your FM radio, you'll get the best copy at different frequencies during the pass. And a pass of the ISS could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be 12 minutes. It just varies on the particular pass where you are and what its current orbit is. But um, we have this Doppler to deal with, and I had, people commonly put these frequencies into different channels on their radio. And as the pass goes by, they'll start at this 437.810. And when that gets scratchy, they'll move it to the next frequency and just keep going through the pass. So, um, so there are a lot of brands of radios. So how you implement this depends a lot on your radio. So it takes a little homework. This chart here is from work-sat.com, which is a good resource for what they call easy sats, the FM satellites. And the site is maintained by Clint Bradford, K6LCS. And Clint will gladly give clubs presentations. So if there's interest, we can get Clint to come talk to, uh, well, likely it would be on Zoom or something like that. But we'll check it. If there's interest, we'll check into that. All right. Well, there are a whole lot of satellites, and they um, that have amateur radio, and um, and actually satellites tend to have a lifetime. Some of them have a very long life. Some of them are much shorter. But the point of this screen is um, it's a good thing to check to see if the satellite you're interested in is active. And there's two rows on here, one for ISS data, which would be the digipeater radio, and the other's ISS FM, which would be the the crossband repeater. So we see there's some activity there. I haven't used it, but there's a new satellite. It's called, I believe it's called SO 124, and uh, that's something to investigate. Um, I usually try to make a satellite contact at the field days, and since it's generally a bonus of some type, and RS-44 is my go-to satellite. It's a Russian satellite. All right. Well, since we're talking about orbiting satellites and the ISS is orbiting, um, there'll be particular times when it's overhead and within sight, so above the horizon, and there must be 20 or more tracking programs, and you can use any one that you like. I happen to use one on my Android phone. It is called ISS Detector, and it will give you passes, say, from now to 10 days from now. So you can do your planning based on when the passes appear. So you select your pass at a particular time, a particular day. You also tell the program where you are, and it will tell you um, when you'll get uh, um, acquisition above the horizon. And so to give you all the information you need, where it's going to rise and where it's going to set, so to speak. And so so you can investigate different programs. If you have an Android phone, I'd probably recommend this one. Uh, well, for satellite use in general, the directional antennas are popular. I've got two shown here that are commercially available. One's the Arrow antenna, and I'm drawing a blank on the other, elk. So the one on the left is the elk, the one on the right is the arrow, but there is a design on the internet for a tape measure, Yagi, and also other homebrew antennas. And I'll just tell you this, it won't be the best antenna, but you may be able to have some success with even a J pole uh, or some other kind of antenna. It's not going to be as good as these, but you know, so I wouldn't eliminate all other antennas from the choice, particularly if you just want to listen. And I think that's a good thing to start with, is just to listen to one of these passes and get familiar with it. So, making a QSO on the ISS repeater is similar to the other FM repeaters. And so you got to know when the start time is. And I say show up with three hands. You if you're going to have a directional antenna, you're going to mess with the radio and all that. You really need four hands, but three hands, okay. Well, anyway, it's a little challenging, but you can do it. Open up your squelch. It's generally a good idea to record the audio of the pass. So listen, point your antenna, adjust for Doppler, and see if you can pick out a call. Now, I think the hardest part is these people. Well, the calls go by pretty fast, so you'll need to store one in your head, and it's kind of like uh, air traffic control. You know, it's just a brief blurb, and uh, you need to capture it. But that's a detail. So if I was working Bob Plank and I heard him, I would say Kilo Kilo 4 Delta Indy Victor. This is November 4 Kilo Golf Lima. I'm at Echo Mike 70. So grid squares are popular with satellite people because they want to see how many grid squares they can work. So know your grid square. Uh, Down in the Panama City area, it's EM70. Up here in Dothan, I think it's EM71. So you just need four digits. That's enough. So if you call them, they'll call you back and give you their information. And so that's why it's good to have a recording just in case you can't write it all down. And that's the gist of it. And it's not mandatory, but if you work people, it's good to put your contact on Logbook of the World, and that way it'll get confirmed and everybody's happy. Okay, well, we're switching gears. Does anybody have questions about the crossband repeater before we move on? Okay.
Hey, Greg.
Yes.
A little bit more about the antennas. They
Okay.
are the best ones are like the one on the right is vertical, horizontally polarized, and also I understand a lot of them come with duplexers on them,
Well,
so you can
yeah.
transmit and receive.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Well, uh, I guess I have an opinion like this. If you want to really get into this and optimize things, you may want a radio that does duplex and an antenna likewise. Actually, the duplexer for the arrow can be part of the antenna. So, but I'll tell you, when I got into FM satellites, I didn't have a duplexer and I did just fine. So, now the advantage of a duplexer is when you point the antenna at the satellite and transmit, if you're getting into the satellite on the uplink, you will hear your own voice on the downlink. So this is a nice to have, but it's not absolutely mandatory. So, and there aren't, there obviously are uh, radios that are full duplex, but it's kind of the minority.
I have a question.
Yes.
What kind of radio are these guys using?
Well, you can simply use HT. Uh,
Okay, I just wondered if that's what it was. It looked like it.
yeah. Now you can use pretty much any two band radio, UHF, VHF. But if you're going to be going out in the field and doing this, it's nice if you can do it with a HT. And
Yeah, okay.
yeah, and this is a pretty big subject that we really should cover um, at another session. I'm open to questions, but we could go into more detail in another session, uh, another Zoom meeting. Um, so it's like everything in ham radio. You can keep it simple or you can go beyond simple. And so I wouldn't rule out the absolute simplest approach. And the good news is a lot of us, it may be the radio you have is good enough to get you on. So, but there are details about every radio about putting the frequencies in and all that. So kind of on a case by case basis. So I've thought about this, and this is one aspect of ham radio. It takes a little more homework to do, but um, you'll have a lot of fun with it. All right. Well, I'm going from the FM repeater to the APRS digipeater. Uh, there are APRS, and you'll notice if you're buying a 2 meter radio, or well, really a 2 band radio, it may include some APRS capabilities, and you may have no interest in APRS. But APRS is just this whole world of capability that's deployed all over the world by volunteers. Uh, a lot of people in their vehicles um, have APRS radios, and those radios can beacon their position, and that will show up on various maps for APRS. And that is a subject in itself. And in addition, there can be digipeaters. So it's a digital form of a repeater, and APRS utilizes packet radio. So basically, it will receive a packet and broadcast it back out on the same frequency. And that's the capability that the ISS has on that second radio. So anyway, it's a different frequency, 145.825. It will have a call sign, and I got this info from Copilot. So it may be ARISS or it may be RS0ISS. You'll have to figure that out. Uh, but anyway, uh, the ISS, when it's overhead, has a big footprint. So people, it, you know, in the United States, or it may overlap with Central America or Canada or whatever. And as it goes across, uh, new people come into the footprint and so forth. So anyway, So as it says, the ISS digipeater can be a fun and rewarding experience. There. Um, I have done some work with the digipeater. I don't do it every day. In fact, I did this so long ago, I probably have forgot how to do it. But um, basically, if your radio beacons and it reaches the ISS and it gets digipeated, you'll show up on a map. And this is the map, and I'm in 4KGL, and I was down in Florida. So so I showed up. And they keep a list, they update it with every pass of who was um, uh, digipeated, because ground stations receive this and they put it in the database. And so, it makes you feel good if you get on the list, and I did. And all right, and there's APRS map I showed up on. All right, but I'm going to try to do this here now. It was a little silly, but my buddy Bob Plank, KK4DIV, lives in Lynn Haven. I was at my house in Panama City, and we communicated via the ISS. And I have a little description of that here, which is actually a YouTube video, but it's not very long. So here we go. All right, so here's our APRS QSO by the ISS. And it's from my perspective. Okay, this is a radio I have. Bob had a different radio. And by the way, Yaesu radios tend to have good APRS capabilities. Certainly Kenwood radios do. And this is a Kenwood D74. And, well, with the stock antenna, I can't remember if that may have been what I was using. So believe it or not, I have hit the satellite with just the standard rubber duck. Here we go. Okay, so Bob's radio is beaconing. It's picked up by the digipeater. It's digipeated out. So I got his information on my radio. So that's a good start. So I sent him an APRS message. I think the only thing was wrong is I was in Florida, not Alabama. But anyway, so that's what I sent to him. And then he pushed some buttons on his radio, and I got the message receiving you in EM70 DEKK4DIV. And, like any other QSO, I replied to Bob, thanks for the call. And I got a QSL back from Bob. So it went on and on here. All right, I sent him a 73, and that's it. So, well, anyway, you know, a lot of people uh, use APRS just for tracking, but it does have a messaging capability. And with this radio, what when I'm walking Susie, uh, my basset hound, uh, I look at my HT and when I see a call sign, I just send them a little message. And I said, hello from EM71, you know, basically. And then I got a reply. It said, hello from 10,000 feet. And it was an aircraft um, flying over. And it, this was not going through the ISS. It was going through other digipeaters. It's like a network. So APRS would be a good subject for upcoming Zoom. All right. Well, any questions about digipeating with the ISS at this time? Okay. Our third topic is slow scan television from the ISS. And if you're new to ham radio, you may not have heard of it, but it's a method of transmitting still images over radio frequencies. And so it's not like live TV, but it sends images frame by frame. And you need some software to do the decoding. But and if you check it out on 20 meters at a particular frequency, there is slow scan TV going on all the time. But
Is it true? Is it true that some of those slow scan on 20 meters is slightly pornographic?
I can neither confirm or deny, but I think you're right. Well, you know, maybe it's a little less than it used to be. I can't say, but but I don't know about pornographic, but they've been somewhat interesting.
I think the
Okay.
ones from the International Space Station are pretty clean.
Yeah, I think they, well, in fact, those originate with the space station. So we'll show you an example of that as we go on here. But anyway, slow scan TV is its own subject, applicable to HF, also applicable here. So what they have is special events, maybe one or two times a year, and they'll send uh, images. And the nice thing about this, you don't have to have a ham radio license to receive them. So it's a real good thing for students to do to learn more about satellites and so forth. Um, and so it's really an educational outreach, among other things. And so, you know, if a student was doing it, they would need to know, need to use tracking software to know when the ISS is overhead. They would need, they wouldn't necessarily have to have one of our expensive radios. Uh, and I have a picture here. Um, well, this one was sponsored by the Russians. So, um, but usually they'll have a dozen images that they put out over several days on various topics. So, we had a club member that got them all. So it's kind of a challenge to get them all and to get them without the distortion and noise. But it's fun in any case. And um, so you don't have to have an expensive radio. You could use a RTL dot dash SDR, maybe a $30 SDR module. That would be perfectly applicable. And there's a YouTube to show you how to do it. All right. Well, here's the fourth big thing, and that is they're astronauts on the ISS and they're students here on Earth. And it's a great opportunity for the students to talk to the astronauts. And this has been going on for years. And schools or groups can apply, and they have to do a little more than just say they want to do it. They have to kind of make it an educational activity. But nevertheless, it's a big thing, and they come up with a list of questions for the astronauts or one astronaut. And um, the neat thing about this is, well, we'll talk about the options, but one option, it's via amateur radio. So somewhere there needs to be a setup that's going to do the uplink and downlink and then connect with the students. So, so for a ham, for me, I probably could do it, but I'd be a little worried that maybe I'd screw it up and all those be a lot of disappointed students and astronauts. So, but nevertheless, but they have some options. Um, one is a direct radio link. I think that would be cool. Um, and then they got these telebridge options, but they all involve amateur radio. And I've heard it said that if the ISS loses all its communication, they've got amateur radio. Okay, they've got the equipment, and that's just an aside there. Okay, well, this is an astronaut who, during the last few months, this is Miss Williams, who kind of got stuck on the ISS longer than she expected, but she did um, a session with students, and so that was a great thing, and I'm sure the students learn a lot and get a big kick out of it. Now, this is the fifth thing. Okay, it's very rare, but it's it is possible uh, to talk to an astronaut just like we talk to other people on 2 meters. Okay, and but it doesn't. It kind of depends on the astronauts if they're interested on getting on the air. And when they do get on the air, they're very popular. Okay, they attract a lot of attention, and uh, when I kind of got back into ham radio about 2008, I did run into an astronaut and I had a brief contact. And so I was really fortunate to be able to do that. And maybe you want to monitor the frequency, but like I say, it doesn't happen very often. Now, when I was listening, the they had trouble with the cooling system, and they had done three, you know, whatever they call it, EVs or whatever, to go out and and fix it. And I said, well, with all that going on, they're just not going to be on the radio. But this ham, the astronaut on the right, Doug Wheelock, uh, he's one of those that is very interested, and he was the one I talked to on the radio. And the rest of the story is he came to Southeast Alabama. He was invited to high schools in Southeast Alabama to give a talk about his experiences on the ISS. And I happened to get an invite, and I took him my QSL card, and so I got to meet the astronaut that I worked on the radio. So this is called an eyeball QSO. So, all right. Well, we didn't get into the details, but uh, particularly for new folks, I wanted them to be aware of the opportunities on the ISS, and so I have some suggestions. Uh, uh, Pick out a tracking program for satellites, and all of them include the ISS. And if you want to see the ISS, if it's at night, you can go outside and possibly, if there's a clear night, you could see the ISS going by. And uh, one thing that doesn't involve transmitting is those SSTV events. You will have to put some, you will need to connect your computer to your radio, but we do that a lot. Kind of the next step up is to try the crossband repeater, and there'll be some details to that that we've already mentioned. And really, even if you don't talk, I think it's interesting to listen for starters. It's always a good idea. And the last one there is try out the digipeater. And, I think that's probably a little bit advanced topic, but if you're into APRS, then it's not such a leap to do it with the ISS. So that's what I've got for you tonight. Any questions? We'll go back to our audience on Zoom.